Well, small mercies. Thanks very much for Deepti for bringing us that ground report. Schools at least were shut owing to Bakri Eid tomorrow, and really one hopes that the tensions de-escalates at the earliest. On to the big story from the national capital, and it comes from the GST Council because the Union Cabinet has approved the formation of the all-important panel which will be taking a call on all the crucial decisions in the lead-up to the implementation of the landmark legislation. The Union Finance Minister will be the chairperson of this council, while each state will be represented by a minister from the state cabinet, and assisting this council will be a separate secretariat altogether that will be headed by the Union Revenue Secretary, and the cost of which will be borne by the centre. Speaking with the media earlier today, Revenue Secretary Hasmukh Adhia reiterated that the GST Council would be responsible for all major decisions as far as the tax reforms are concerned. Further, he also clarified that the government is well ahead of schedule as far as the GST implementation. Remember, the deadline is on the 1st of April. Take a look.
As far as GST itself is concerned, there is no need to have any separate discussion forum. All the decisions and discussion relating to GST will now take place in this constitutional body which has been created. But whether to continue empowered committees separately for other issues or not, it is a matter of joint discussion between centre and the states, and that can be separately decided. But as far as GST is concerned, now all discussions on GST ideally should take place only in the meeting of GST Council now that it is created.
And for some perspective on that, Rajeev Dimri of BMR Advisors is on the phone line. Rajeev, thanks very much for joining us. You know, it's bizarre that as a country we waited 10 years for the GST, and then a little over a month after the parliament passed it, we've seen, 17 states clearing it, the presidential assent, and now the cabinet has also come and approved the formation of the GST Council. Does all this make the April 1 deadline more likely? Because, of course, there's a lot of groundwork still left, and the Revenue Secretary said that today they are way ahead of the, of the deadline that they had internally set. April 1 looking more and more likely now, Rajeev?
Well, my personal view is that the day the parliamentary process was done and we had the Rajya Sabha and then a follow-up, debate in the Lok Sabha, the political process and the political deadlock on GST introduction was over that day. What we are seeing are administrative steps thereafter, which of course, there was no impediment expected, and therefore we are seeing, of course, a quick pace, which is encouraging. The next process is going to be the passage of two laws by the Parliament, which is CGST and IGST, and of course each state passing its SGST law. If that happens on time, then I think from a government perspective, they would claim that they are ready on April 1, which is the timeline that they're still working on. The timeline issue is more from the industry side rather than from the government side. Of course, there is an assumption that all states will pass their laws sometime in January. Because if that does not happen, then
in
we
fact,
can debate the timeline.
we'll come to the impact on industry. Yes, Rajeev. In fact, we'll come to the impact of industry in just a bit, but let's address the elephant in the room, which is, really what the GST rate is going to be, because this council, we are told, will have a 2-month window. That is, so by the 23rd of November, they should finalize, what the GST rate is, the list of exemptions. Do you think the timeline is realistic and fair, considering the fact that, that we've already had a working committee which has been meeting? So it's not that this council is going to meet and fall from the heavens. The fact is there's already been a lot of groundwork that has gone into it.
Well, I personally believe that the work that has to be done by the GST Council, of course, the Impart Committee has been doing it. The central government nominees have been participating in that. So all that is remaining is the political decision on rates and other things. The work that of analysis, etc., that the ground level has to be done, I'm assuming, and I'm reasonably confident that has been done. So I personally am not attaching any sense of delay on this 2 month, whether enough ground will be covered on rate and exemptions. This exemption list we've been talking about for years. So I would be extremely surprised if these things come in the way of delay. I think that those things are under control.
Rajeev, one final question, because, I interrupted when you were talking about the industry, because you've said that the level of preparation that industry requires is much more than what actually the government requires. In such a situation, how is industry looking at all of this?
Well, that's the big part that, while there is fair bit of information available as to what would GST look like in terms of key, policy level. However, industry and each company needs more actionable information to be able to start taking real effective steps in terms of changing their accounting systems, changing their ERP packages, changing their pricing policies, and so on and so forth. And that cannot happen when we have policy level information. We need actionable information. Actionable information, with that I mean the laws, the rules, the forms, and that we are earliest expecting to come sometime in December and January, and that leaves not adequate time for the industry to make all the changes by the April 1 deadline. So if at all there is a question on industry preparedness, I'm sure a lot of discussions are going on within the working groups in various companies and industries, but we don't have actionable information today.
We don't have actionable information just yet. Rajeev, we'll leave it at that. Thank you very much for joining us and giving us your quick update. We need to slip into a break now. But up next, the big story, panic selling grips Dalal Street. Global jitters shave more than 400 points of the